To be honest, it's in here. It's the mentality.
An unlikely double does for Arsenal. And the implications may reverberate further into the season.
A beer cup was thrown at Kevin De Bruyne, a 5-1 demolition with a teenager mocking Haaland's celebration, and a manager telling the press, "I have all the information," hinting at City's 115 financial charge saga. For 3 seasons in row, Arsenal did everything right. The squad, the tactics, the atmosphere, all of it screamed champions. But one observation from Rodri suggested something was missing, something you can't buy and can't fake. So what exactly did he see that nobody else wanted to admit? And why do they hate each other so much? To understand why Rodri's words cut so deep, you need to understand what Arsenal had built. And what they'd built was, by any reasonable measure, extraordinary. 3 consecutive seasons as Premier League runners-up. A squad averaging 25 years old, playing football that made neutrals fall in love. Bukayo Saka is turning into a generational talent in real time. Declan Rice is anchoring a midfield that could match anyone in Europe. Martin Odegaard is running the whole operation, as if he'd been doing it for a decade. And at the centre of it all, Mikel Arteta, the man who'd gone from Pep Guardiola's assistant to building something that genuinely terrified his former mentor. Guardiola himself confirmed it. He called Arsenal a complete team and our biggest rival in the last 2 seasons. Coming from a man who collects league titles the way some people collect parking tickets, that meant something. Arsenal weren't pretending to be contenders. They were contenders. 2 years of sustained excellence against the most dominant English side since Ferguson's United. The Emirates was rocking again. The fanbase believed again. For the first time since the Invincibles, there was a genuine sense that something historic was being built. And then Rodri opened his mouth. He didn't shout. He didn't taunt. He didn't even seem particularly invested in making a point. He just observed, calmly, almost clinically, that Arsenal seemed to not to deliver when the moment demanded everything. That there was a difference between playing like champions and being champions. That mentality wasn't something you developed by coming close. You proved it by finishing the job. The reactions were furious. Arsenal Twitter treated it like a declaration of war. Pundits called it disrespectful. Gary Neville said it was unnecessary. The consensus was clear. Rodri was being arrogant. He was being dismissive. He was wrong. But what if he wasn't? Because the evidence didn't start with Rodri's interview. It started long before that, and it kept piling up, incident by incident, like a prosecutor building a case nobody wanted to hear. Let's start with the moment that set the temperature for everything that followed. February 2023, Arsenal versus City. A match that mattered because Arsenal were top of the league, and this was supposed to be the statement game, the one where they proved they belonged at the summit. They lost, but the scoreline isn't the interesting part. Kevin De Bruyne shoved Arteta on the touchline. Arsenal fans hurled plastic bottles and a beer cup at City players. Chaos erupted around the technical area. It was messy, heated, and emotional. De Bruyne responded. He posted a photo of the beer cup on Instagram. Caption, "Beer anyone? Thanks." Read that again. The man had just been involved in a physical confrontation on the touchline, and his reaction was to make a joke about it on social media. That's not a footballer responding. That's a man who has won everything telling you, with a smile, that your chaos doesn't register, that your intensity is entertainment to him. When the storm came, City stayed calm. And Arsenal brought the storm, and then wondered why they were the ones getting wet. Fast forward to September 2024. Arsenal draw 2-2 with City at the Etihad. And what should have been a perfectly respectable result against the champions becomes a psychological crime scene. Gabriel tells the press it was a battle, a war, a provocation. Arteta goes further. He tells reporters he knows City from the inside, that he has all the information, and delivers the line with the energy of a man holding a dossier he's been building since 2019. "I know, trust me.
I have all the information, so I know.
Football Twitter erupted. Arsenal fans loved it. Here was their manager, finally taking the fight to Guardiola, finally matching City's psychological intensity. Except he didn't, because within days, Arteta walked every word of it back. He praised Guardiola. He softened his language. He explained that he only meant he knows how hard they work. The dossier, it turned out, was more of a pamphlet. And the man who'd hinted at inside knowledge was now publicly retreating from his own implications. Guardiola's response? He didn't retreat. He escalated. You want a war? I'm there. One manager blinked, the other leaned in, and the gap between those two reactions told you everything Rodri had already said in a single sentence without needing to. The same match, City's late equaliser. Haaland celebrates, and in the chaos of the moment, he hurls the ball directly off the back of Gabriel's head. Not accidental, not a stray bounce. A deliberate, calculated act of psychological aggression from a man who scores goals the way most people breathe, without thinking about it and with alarming frequency. Then, at full time, Haaland walks toward Arteta. The cameras catch it. 2 words, delivered with the quiet confidence of a man who knows exactly what he's doing. Stay humble. Those 2 words went viral for a reason. You only tell someone to stay humble when you believe their confidence has outrun their achievements, when you think they're writing checks their trophy cabinet can't cash. Arteta responded with dignity. I don't take anything personally. Composed, measure, and professional. Arsenal beat City 1-0 at the Emirates, their long-awaited scalp. The result that was supposed to prove everything, the one that was supposed to silence every critic and vindicate every ounce of belief. Instead, the final whistle triggered chaos. Kyle Walker ignored Nicolas Jover's handshake. Haaland confronted him. Staff from both clubs squared up in the tunnel. It was ugly, aggressive, and completely unnecessary for a team that had just won the biggest match of their season. And then, Guardiola, smiling, delivered the line that should have kept Arsenal's entire coaching staff awake for weeks. I know what happened.
I know what happened, but I don't want to say anything.
But I don't want to say. They know it. Even in defeat, City held a card they chose not to play. There is something deeply unsettling about that kind of restraint. It suggests a long game. It implies a level of control that Arsenal, in their moment of triumph, couldn't match. The win that should have felt like a coronation became tangled in controversy. The narrative shifted from Arsenal beat City to what happened in the tunnel. And a result that should have defined the season became a footnote to a question nobody could answer. Was the victory ever fully theirs to own? Or had City, even in losing, managed to take something from it? If Haaland's aggression was a sledgehammer, Bernardo Silva's was a scalpel. During one fixture, Bernardo flashed his fingers at Arsenal players. 0, a gesture signalling Arsenal's Premier League titles in the modern era. Not a tackle, not a goal, not even a sentence. 10 fingers, held up for a fraction of a second, carrying the weight of decades. Then came the post-match interview, where Bernardo addressed comparisons to the City-Liverpool rivalry. His words were surgical. He pointed out that Liverpool had actually won the Champions League and the Premier League, unlike this Arsenal. Cold, precise and devastating, and completely unanswerable, because the only response to a man showing you a trophy count is to go win trophies. Everything else is noise. This is what Rodri was talking about. Mentality isn't built in a single season of playing well. It's forged across years of winning, losing, and winning again. City's players carried themselves with the quiet certainty of people who had earned the right to be dismissive. Arsenal's players carried the energy of people still trying to prove they belonged in the same room. The difference is subtle, but at the highest level, subtle is everything. And then, finally, catharsis. Arsenal 5, Manchester City 1. A demolition, a mauling, the kind of result that makes grown men post crying emojis on social media and screenshot league tables at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. 18-year-old Miles Lewis Skelly scored and mimicked Haaland's meditation celebration, a direct answer to the superstar who had once scoffed, "Who are you?" Gabriel celebrated in Haaland's face. The emoji tweets flew. Arsenal's social media team had the night of their lives. For Arsenal fans, it was everything. Every grievance, every slight, every stay humble, and every zero gesture answered in the most emphatic way football allows, with goals. But here's where the script gets complicated, because the most interesting reaction came from the losing side. Haaland didn't spiral. He didn't lose his composure. He pointed to the Premier League winner's badge on his jersey and walked off the pitch. His father responded online, dripping with sarcasm. "This team that wins everything? No. Even at 5-1 down, even with an 18-year-old mocking their star, even in their worst result of the season, City carried themselves with the quiet certainty of people who know exactly who they are. No panic, no identity crisis, just a badge and a walk." Arsenal showed up to the mind game that night. They played it with passion, with fury, with style. But did they win it? Or did they just play it? Because showing a champion you can hurt them is not the same as proving you can replace them. And the celebration itself, the sheer emotional release of it, told you something uncomfortable about where Arsenal were psychologically. Champions don't celebrate a league match in February like they've won the World Cup. They file it away and move on. They point to the badge and walk. So why was Rodri's observation dismissed so quickly? Why did an entire football culture hear a reasonable psychological assessment and react like it was a personal insult? Because club identity is personal identity. When Rodri said Arsenal lacked the mentality to win, he wasn't criticising a business or a brand. He was criticising something millions of people had woven into the fabric of who they are. Their weekends, their friendships, their family traditions, their emotional architecture. Arsenal fans had invested enormous emotional capital in this resurgence. Arteta's project felt like a redemption story, a return to the summit after years of decline, after the banter era, after watching Spurs somehow become more relevant for 5 minutes. Rodri's words threatened to rewrite that story's ending, and nobody wants to hear that the hero might not be ready for the final act while they're still cheering. The media fed into it. Pundits compared the rivalry's intensity to Arsenal versus Manchester United in the late 1990s. Columnists described genuine hatred between the clubs, a bitterness that went beyond City-Liverpool. And there's an important concession buried in that framing. You don't generate that kind of heat by being irrelevant. City needed Arsenal to be a serious threat to feel this level of hostility. The rivalry was a tribute to Arsenal's ascent. But a tribute is not a trophy. And the off-pitch battles told the same story. Arsene Wenger's financial doping accusations. Arsenal's alleged lobbying to get City banned from the Champions League. The boardroom tensions that simmered for years before boiling over into public view. Arsenal fought City off the pitch as fiercely as they fought on it, and lost those battles too. This is not a takedown. Arsenal under Arteta are a phenomenal football team. The squad is elite. The manager is brilliant. The trajectory is real. But there is a difference, a gap so thin you could almost miss it, between believing you can win and knowing you can win. Between performing like champions and being champions. Between wanting it with every fibre of your being and carrying the quiet, boring, unshakable certainty that it belongs to you. City have that certainty. They didn't always have it. They earned it. Through years of near misses, through the Aguero moment, through the treble, through an accumulation of success that eventually stopped feeling like achievement and started feeling like identity. Arsenal are still earning theirs. And the only currency that counts is silverware. The story doesn't end here, and that matters more than anything else in this script. Arteta is still there. The squad is still developing. Saka is still getting better. Rice is still getting better. The Emirates is still loud enough to rattle anyone who walks through the tunnel. The question is whether 3 years of falling short at the final hurdle of being close enough to taste it and watching it dissolve on the tongue. Whether those experiences are scars that slow you down or lessons that forge something harder, history offers examples in both directions. Liverpool lost the 2018 Champions League final and came back to win it a year later. Tottenham lost the same 2019 final and have been in psychological freefall ever since. The same trauma. Two completely opposite responses. The difference wasn't talent, it was mentality. And that word again, mentality. The word Rodri used. The word everyone dismissed. Was he right? Almost certainly. Does it have to stay that way? No. But the fix isn't a new signing or a tactical adjustment. It's something deeper, harder to measure, and impossible to buy. It's the moment when Arsenal stopped celebrating draws at the Etihad, when they stopped treating victories over City like cup finals, when they stopped needing to answer Haaland's provocations and start ignoring them entirely because they've decided their own identity doesn't require a response from anyone else. It's the moment when the badge speaks for itself, when the trophy cabinet does the talking, when someone tells them to stay humble, and they don't respond with fury or dignity or social media posts. They just point to the Premier League trophy and walk. That moment hasn't arrived yet, but it might. Rodri looked at Arsenal and saw something nobody else was willing to name. Not a lack of talent, not a lack of ambition. A fracture in the foundation that only shows up under maximum pressure. The kind of pressure that separates contenders from champions. The greatest rivals are the ones who make you confront who you really are. City held up a mirror to Arsenal, and for 2 years, Arsenal couldn't look away. The question now isn't whether they liked what they saw, it's whether they're willing to change it. If you want to follow the story of how a slow midfielder outplayed everyone, check out our video here.